Welcome to the What's Your Weird Story podcast.
Everyone has at least one good story.
And some of us have stories that are just to the left of normal.
We're interested in the ones that push the boundaries of what we can perceive.
Stories that defy explanations.
Stories with an air of mystery.
Stories we might not share
for fear of being thought of differently.
But don't worry, we're all friends here. So, what's your weird story? Hi, welcome to the What's Your Weird Story podcast. This is episode number 11. Yes, it's 11. Barry, my co-host, it's 11.
It's 11.
It's 11.
Yeah,
okay.
It's 11. Definitely episode 11. And today's episode, buckle your seatbelts because this is a heavy one. It's a heavy
bumpy
one.
Ride.
Yeah,
it's a bumpy ride.
And because we've talked about this a little bit off air, we don't really understand sometimes where people's experiences are coming from, and sometimes they come from a real place, and sometimes those places are heavy. They're emotional, and it's not always fun and games. And we have two storytellers today, and we really appreciate them bearing a lot of very heavy personal stuff, but they're great stories. And, it's a bumpy road, but both of them end up with some great, much lighter stories to tell us. So, we talked about some things that were sort of personal for myself, and I want to share that because it's part of who I am. And we kind of, the conversation kind of went that way, and I'm kind of glad that we had a moment to kind of talk about that. But again, both of these guys are great people, and really happy that we're able to get them on and get their stories out there. Yeah. So we've got calling in from Florida is Greg, and then also from Enid. Is it from Enid? Is Chris from Enid? Yep. Chris is from Enid, Oklahoma. There we go. We got your buddy Chris. So it's not all gloom. These are still great stories, but they're very personal and very touching, and they're fun. And they're not all dark. There's some light at the end of both of the tunnels, as it were. Absolutely. And so with that being said, we're going to get this thing started off with Chris. So Chris, what's your weird story?
Oh, let's see. I have a few. The weird thing was trying to narrow down weird stories. Sure. My life has been really weird, but
man, don't feel like you got to narrow down. In fact, flesh it all out. Just shotgun it all. Just give it all. We want to hear it all.
Well, okay, it's coincidence stuff, and I'm going to leave the funny, happy one for the last, so we end on a high note. But my whole life has been all these weird coincidences. I was adopted, but my birth mother passed away on Thanksgiving. And my adopted mom passed away on Christmas. And my whole life has been those weird instances just like that. Yeah, wow. Which I guess leads into the first one that I mentioned to Barry, which is about, you remember that TV show Charmed?
Oh, yeah.
I used to watch it. And when Rose McGowan came on the show, her character was a support staff at a DHS office working in the child welfare department, and her character was always called a half-breed because she was half witch and half angel or something like that. And yes. And she has two siblings that she got reunited with, which is how she got brought into the show. That is my story. I'm mixed, being half black and half white, so I've got the half-breed thing. At the same time that this came out, I was working at DHS as support staff in the child welfare department.
Huh.
Wow. And I got reunited with my two siblings that I didn't know about, just like her. Wow. And their mom had died at a certain age at the same time I would have been in real life.
Wow. Huh. Whoa.
It's it's like somebody new.
Yeah, that's a lot to unpack there, man.
That is quite a series of coincidences that all fall in together.
right
in that order, and that's peculiar, man. That's really strange. I mean, that just shows you like how weird the universe is, and how these things just. That's bizarre. It's weird. That's cool.
Well, you start thinking like, is somebody trying to tell me something? Is there something I should be getting out of this? Or I was like, no, it's a bad show. I don't know what I can.
Did you actively look for them, or did it just kind of fall into place? Or
no, it fell into place. My older brother, remembered me. I would have been about 6 months old when all of this happened.
Wow.
He was a few years older than me. We stayed together during this. It's a long story, but we stayed together during part of it. And well, I'll just tell you.
Yeah, tell us. We do it all the time.
My mom had somebody threaten her and us when we were babies, and so she took us and hid us with another family. Which some things happened, and my brother and I got separated. When the Bio family found out about it, they started trying to get us back, and a big, huge thing. So I got left behind. My brother remembered bits and pieces of this, and he went back to the Bio family, and they always talked about me. And so he knew about me, and he had made this promise to himself that before he went off to college, he was going to come find me, even though nobody would talk about me. Talk about where I was or let him know that much information. But so he came and found me, and another weird coincidence. Sunday morning, I'm leaving to go to church, and church was just down the street, and I usually just walked. And this morning, for some reason, I asked my mom if my mom was really like strict and everything, so I didn't bother asking things. But this morning, I asked her if I could go to my cousin's house across the street from the church. I've never done that before. And she said yes, which was weird. And when I walked out the door, a truck pulls up in front of my house at the same time on the street. And this guy gets out and starts talking to me and asking me all these weird questions. And when he asked me, "Are your parents home?" I thought he's either getting ready to kidnap me or he's getting ready to break into my house or something. I was like,
that is kind of a weird, I mean,
Yeah, a little bit. But then he started asking more questions. Like he asked what my name was, and my name got changed because I was in hiding. So my name got changed, and he didn't know that my name had been changed. Our mom, unfortunately, she died because of this. And so she wasn't around to give him a lot of information. So he started asking me my name, and when I told him my name, he was like, "That doesn't sound right." And he started asking me if I had siblings and all of this. And then he told me that he was my brother. So, yeah,
and
right there in the street.
How old are you at this time, Chris?
I'm 14.
Wow.
Yeah.
Could you see it? Did you recognize it? Do you go like, this guy?
The weird thing, I was 2 years old when he left, and I vaguely remembered him being around, but my parents always told me he was just a kid that was staying with us.
Right.
And I guess to keep me from asking questions. But the moment he told me all of this, it's kind of like I just accepted it. Like, as cautious a kid I was, for some reason I believed him and didn't question it. And I was, and then I kind of went into shock.
Of course.
So, yeah.
Of course, man. That's pretty heavy stuff, man.
That is heavy. That's exactly what I was going to say.
So then what? So then what's the next move?
Then Charm stole my story. That's the whole point of it.
Oh my
and I want to sue. That's why I'm bringing this public. I want to get my
good
story is amazing, but I mean, don't take this the wrong way, but you are not quite the knockout that Rose McGowan is.
Well, no. Have you seen her lately?
That's true. You got it. You're the winner.
Saying.
Yeah, no. You're the winner.
Yeah. I could be wrong.
Wow.
I kid. But yeah, really, really weird stuff. So I mean, basically, it was trying to get through that. You asked what was next. I mean, it was all kind of a blur, to be honest.
Sure.
Trying to get my parents to know that I had found out, and then me finding out about my mom and about all of that stuff, and meeting my other little brother that I had. She gave birth once more before she died. So I had a little brother that I got connected with, and then the following year, another coincidence, the following year after that happened is when my adopted mom passed away. So
wow,
it was kind of, and I obviously had grief issues and all of that, but it was also weird as I got older. I thought, as I lost a major family member, I also gained a couple with my brothers. Of course. So it was like timing. Yeah.
Oh man, that's incredible. I have not that this is anywhere near that, but I have my father had a friend who passed away, and his son, he had two sons, and one of them was contacted by someone on Facebook. And this person said, "Hey, listen, I'm your brother, and your father had me before he had ever gotten married." And so this whole time he knew that he had another kid. I don't know if he had a relationship with him, but he knew of him. And now his two boys find out that he had another kid. And of course, they had a very difficult time with his passing. So they had set up a meeting, and they met at a restaurant. And they said that as soon as he stepped out of the vehicle, and they showed me a picture of him, it was his dad. Boom. Like, to a T. You look at the picture of him, and then you look at their dad, to a T. The same, features, height. He went white pretty early on in his day. So, all those things, and, they just couldn't help but to, break down. And, it was like one of those things, like a thing that you don't want to hear, you don't want to necessarily know, but then it turns out to be a good thing because now they can be there for each other. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you said, they lost family, but now they have more. Right. So it's been, in a way, it's not so much that it's been replaced, but added to. So.
Yeah. Now, Chris, did that lead, I would assume that led you to sort of want to get involved in DHS? Is that one of the things that sort of helping kids out?
I'd always been a rather sensitive kid, like to other people. Like, I don't know, I always felt bad for other people. I just kind of grew up that way.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that helped me feel comfortable going into DHS, working with kids.
Right.
Because I felt like I could identify at least a little bit with all the separation they have to deal with.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
So, it helped.
Sure.
For sure.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. I don't have any magical powers, though. That's kind of a bummer.
That's the only thing.
Hey guys, don't forget to follow us on all of our social media platforms. We're very 21st century. We're on Instagram at What's Your Weird Story. That's WATSYER Weird Story. We're at Twitter. We're at What's Your Weird. We got a Facebook page. It's the What's Your Weird Story podcast Facebook page. Just remember that our your is your because we're folksy. And we also have a www.whatsyourweirdstory.com. That's www.whatsyourweirdstory.com. That's for all of your social media platforms. And those are ways you can contact us and set up an interview if you want to be part of the show. So look us up.
So what else we got?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember I know what the last one was, and I'm trying to remember. Oh, yeah. So obviously recently we all remember, this tragic time, 9/11, it's fairly recent. And every year I'm, obviously kind of going through that process with the rest of America, trying to, thinking through where I was and those feelings and everything. Dealing with that grief. But the weird thing is 2 or 3 weeks before 9/11 happened, and I still have the journal somewhere, I wrote a dream that I had. And in this dream, I'll give you the general first, and I'll give you specifics.
Sure.
The general dream was that there were there were landmarks and being attacked.
Mm-hmm.
The stream, Statue of Liberty, Golden Gate Bridge, these different major icons in America, and a few weeks later, 9/11 happened, and I thought, well, that's kind of eerie. Now, in the dream, the details are what makes it even a little more eerie. First, the government was involved, because this is going to get really weird. I'm talking about sad, but then there's parts that are so weird.
Yeah,
I know. So Mulder and Scully from the X-Files were there, fighting these black, oily statues of liberty that were helping attack the other bigger monuments in America. And Barbara Streisand was in this dream singing in the background, and trying not to die while she's singing. I don't think that has anything to do with 9/11.
Well, you gotta absolutely. If Barbara's in there somewhere, it's a good dream. Gotta have Babs. Gotta have a little Babs in there.
I'm going to come from the other side and say that Babs is in there. It's a bad dream.
Potato, man.
Let's underline again that you are describing a dream.
Yes,
and this is not one of the weird stories that actually did happen.
Right.
Because if it did, man, you've blown it all out of the water. So I don't even know. So anyway, what I wrote down in the dream was that there was just lots of chaos. And when I look back over the kind of the details of the dream, there were so many things that fit in. Obviously, the monuments being the major one, but then the oil. Mm-hmm. Obviously, with who we were fighting, and then France with the Statue of Liberty, the connection there.
Yeah.
And government with X-Files and there were black helicopters in the dream as well. So government was involved, and it all just seemed very timely.
Wow.
And lots of little, at least symbols of.
Now, how long before that happened was the dream, roughly?
It was maybe 2 weeks.
Okay. But it had left an impression on you that you didn't forget it, I'm pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it happens whenever you have dreams and they just kind of, flutter away,
Right.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Well, at the time when I had the dream, I thought it was funny and bizarre, because it was very colorful and very action movie kind of feel to it. And so I didn't think anything of it. And that's why it stuck with me, because funny dreams or those really weird dreams are the ones that I remember really well.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds like a very, very vivid dream.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are usually fun, but then 2 weeks later that happened. And then a little bit later on, I was looking through my journal and kind of remembering that. And I was like, that's a little weird.
That's crazy. So you wrote it down? You wrote a...
Yeah.
I
wrote it because I kept a little journal of dreams and thoughts and things like that.
Wow.
So
it's that obviously that had a global impact everywhere. Yeah. And that had a huge, I guess a psychic type scar on humanity. But it's weird because you had that dream, and then I've heard there's all sorts of other things that were kind of similar leading up to it, including that same day there was a rap group called The Coup who released the album, and on the album it had the Twin Towers. I don't remember if there was a plane hitting them, but they were exploding.
I think it was. Yeah, man. It was really similar. Yeah.
It was. Yeah, dude. But just bizarre, and it's it kind of begs the question of do we really have this huge, as mankind have this link, just as organisms, have this bioelectrical energy or psychic or whatever you want to call it, if there's this huge link that you'd like, not zeitgeist is the wrong word, but it's the whole that unified mind or collective unconsciousness. That's what I was looking for.
Right.
Or subconscious or something like that.
It's pretty incredible that you've had, because there's been other times when things like that have happened, dreams, sort of premonition type things happen, and then before you know it, boom, crazy.
It's weird because they always have those old commercials where the psychics, were always on TV sort of peddling their...
Call me now!
Right.
Oh, yeah. Probably one of the most famous ones there.
Yeah, right.
The running joke was always, you didn't see that coming, you're psychic.
Right. Absolutely. Oh, man. Yeah, that was such a devastating time, of course. I mean, I don't think if you weren't alive then, I don't think you could really put it into perspective just how much it changed our whole way of thinking. We had, my wife and I were on our honeymoon, and we were supposed to come back that day, and ended up staying an extra week in Hawaii, which is great. Yeah. But Hawaii
Barry and Nikki getting stuck in Hawaii for a week on their honeymoon.
It's not that great when you don't have any cash, Well, okay. It's like I budgeted right to the point where we were supposed to come home, and so it took us a week to get onto a plane, and then just because you got onto a plane doesn't mean you're making it home. So we go to LA and we sit there for a couple of days waiting for another plane, and you just wanted to get home. You just wanted to get, with your family, and I had friends that watched it happen, there. And of course they're still having issues, from watching that thing happen. So it's almost like you're talking about the collective unconsciousness or whatever, Adam, it's almost like we feel something so deeply that it sort of resonates at this tone that everybody can, even though we didn't know it was happening or whatever, you just sort of, you feel it, Yeah,
man. When it happened for me, that morning, I was in college at East Carolina University, and I had a later class that day. I don't think I had to be to class till 11. So normally I would set my alarm clock to 10:30 or 10 o'clock, just to be able to get up and get coffee and get to class. But the other days I had a 9 o'clock class. And so I guess I hadn't switched my alarm over to the next day. So I had would wake up later. So somewhere, around 8:30 or 8 in the morning or whatever it was, it had to be, I guess maybe it was closer to 9, but still, my alarm went off early, and the guy on the radio was saying, "Oh, well, there's a plane hit one of the Twin Towers, and we don't know what's going on, but this has happened." So I was kind of shook my head awake and got up and went and turned on the TV and just sat on the couch as the second one hit, and I was just
that was the wake up call. That was the second one was the wake up call. It was okay, something's going on now.
Yeah, immediately my mind went to, this is just like Oklahoma City,
right?
Because I also had a similar situation whenever that happened, where I was living in the dorm at Southwestern Oklahoma State University, and that was my freshman year in college. And I took the long route getting through college. Took some time off in between years trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. So but I woke up because my roommate had come in from taking a shower, and again I didn't have to be up to class till later, and we would leave the radio on overnight, so we'd have music to listen to, and you didn't hear the other one snoring or whatever. But the DJ came on, and I believe it Shannon and the Eggman. Do you remember those two?
Yeah. I do.
I'm totally blanking
the cat?
on the. No. What was the Classic Rocks 1077?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yep.
Was it KRXO?
That might be it.
I can't remember. Either way, but the DJ came on and said, "Yeah, there's been some kind of a explosion downtown. We don't know what it is. Something like a truck blew up, but we'll keep you informed with what it develops." And so and so I went back to sleep, and that was just so bizarre because then we woke up and I remember that day was so weird because I'm just 45 minutes from Oklahoma City. We did not know how bad it was that first day. All of us there. At one point, a group of friends and I were like, "Well, hey, we don't have anything to do this afternoon. Let's just go down and take a look at what happened." And we decided against it, which is good. But that was just, it was just bizarre. And then because we couldn't understand it, just like when 9/11 happened, we could not understand it. Yep. And just crazy, man. It's just wild.
Okay.
All right.
We need to lighten up the mood here.
Yeah, we certainly did.
Yeah. That's why I said I was going to save my more amusing ones for last.
Yeah.
So, do you guys remember they still make them? I think the football shaped toy chests.
Yeah.
Thing. So I had one. Like, I'm 42, so this would have been back in the 80s. I had early 80s. I had one, and I was notorious for just doing things just to see if I could do them.
Of course.
Well, that's the. I think that's part of the ingredients of being a little boy.
Yeah. Right.
See what you do. See what you can get away with.
That's
right. Yeah. And so, one of the things I had, in prior times, I had done things like I had got on one of those old metal swing sets and was doing like flips on there with my cousin. And we had taken the swing itself off, so it would be out of our way. And as I was doing that, the belt loop of my shorts got caught in the hook that the thing go on. So as I start doing these flips, I get caught, and then I'm just dangling just on the top of this beam on this swing set, and I can't get down. There's nothing for me to grab hold of. So I should have known better because I had a habit of things like that happening whenever I tried to do something. So with the toy chest, I don't know what I was thinking in my head or what scenario, because I always had scenarios I was acting out in my head. But something compelled me to get inside the toy chest. And when I did, I was older than I probably should admit, so I'm not going to say what age I was. But I wedged myself in, and, it has the 2 points on it. And so my head sort of popped into one point, and then my leg popped into the other, and I was able to get in, but then I could not get out.
Of course.
I just had one long, lanky leg sticking out of the top. And I remember the top of the chest cutting into my leg, the hard plastic, because I, was wedged in there that way. And I was too embarrassed to yell for my parents at first, so I'm just desperately trying to get out because I knew they were going to look at me and think that I needed help.
Yeah,
so,
what the hell is he doing?
Right. Eventually, I did call for them, and my dad had to come in and cut it open to get me out.
Oh my goodness, man!
Yeah.
Now, were you a teenager at this time? You don't have to be specific, but were you a teenager at this time, or what?
Things happen. Yeah. We're all sorts of ages throughout our lives.
Yeah, right.
So I'm guessing. How tall are you now?
I'm 5'11" right now.
Okay, so I'm going to guess that you were probably, I'm going to say you were 15 when this happened.
No, I was not that. I was not that.
Okay.
I would have done something like that at 15.
Yeah.
But I would have tried to convince a girl to get in there with me. Is the only thing.
And then you would have gotten in trouble for a whole different reason.
Yeah, of course. Oh man. Well, that's awesome, man. I appreciate you taking your time to do this, man.
Well, yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed this.
Chris, man, thank you very much for sharing those stories with us, man. There was some heavy stuff. There's some really cool stuff. There are coincidence and stuff that happened, and coincidences are bigger than what we make of them. I think I really do.
Yeah, I think the coolest thing is that he was able to connect with his family, and that was pretty neat. And that is something that not a lot of people get to experience, and I'm glad that somebody like Chris, who's such a great guy, got a little bit of closure there.
Yeah.
So Chris,
for sure.
Yeah, so Chris, thank you so much for being on, and now we'll turn the reins over to Greg.
Thank you for joining us, Greg. Greg found us through our mutual friend of Sam Herring, and Sam's, of course, the lead singer of Future Islands, and more importantly, my old man, Art Lord and the Self Portraits. So Greg's got some good stories for us too, Barry. He's got some heavy stuff, but he's also got some fun stuff too. And he's got one of the stories, the types of stories that I've been waiting for. And that's a Bloody Mary story.
Yeah, that's awesome. So great stuff.
So Greg, what's your weird story?
Okay, so this is a pretty weird thing that happened to me. Just to give a little background on it, in 2008, my best friend passed away. He unfortunately he OD'd, and it was really devastating for me and our group of friends because we'd known him since I'd known him since fourth grade, so we went way back and everything. And he was the kind of guy that was just really drew everyone together, and like our group of friends that we hang out with, we're still together and still do stuff, and we all kind of met through him. So it was a pretty bad time. Around that time, I actually lost my job, my car, and my apartment at the same, all within a month of that happening. So I was like,
well, they always say it comes in threes. So
yeah, I was kind
it
of.
Sounds like there was at least four there. So
yeah, I was kind of at rock bottom. It felt like just really down and out. And anyway, I moved in with my grandfather, and he took me in for about a year while I got my stuff together. And so this was during that time, and it was kind of like I was a big alcoholic and on using other drugs too, and just kind of out there
trying to deal with life a little bit.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's what can happen.
I think, understandably, I'm sure at this time in your life with all of that going on, I'm sure that it was it did not help with your struggles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was pretty bad with the booze and everything. I was drinking a lot of the time. I was drinking, but anyway, so this happened one night. I actually wasn't drunk this night. I was sober, and I was sleeping in the master bedroom at my grandpa's house. And it's an old house. It's from it was built in the 60s in Fleming Island, Florida. And so I was trying to sleep, and I woke up. It was 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. I woke up, and there was this cold pocket next to me. And it sounds so cliche, but it really was next to me in bed. It was this pocket of just cool air. Huh. I could feel in my where my hand was, it was cold, and over where I was on my side, it wasn't as cold. And
now, if it's summertime in Florida, that's probably a welcomed thing, I would imagine.
Yeah, and my grandpa always kept it really hot. He always was turning up the AC to 80 degrees, and I was always trying to turn it down. So I was like, well, maybe he turned it down or something. No big deal. So I was awakened by that, and I kind of was looking around, and on the ceiling above the bed, there were some shadows on the ceiling, right? Like, I had my cell phone plugged in with a surge protector deal by the bed, and there was a light from the surge protector that was kind of casting shadows of the wires from like my lamp and my cell phone on the ceiling. And as I was trying to go back to sleep, I saw like the shadows of these wires kind of started moving around a little bit. And I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. And they were just kind of like waving a little bit. And I was like, well, maybe it's the wind. And then they started like a breeze or something, I don't know. And they started doing it a little more. And I was like, okay, this is weird. And that's when I started to get kind of freaked out. So I was like, I have the cold air next to me. And then this weird thing is happening. And so then the shadows like start to move kind of even more. And they're moving down to the like far left corner of my bedroom, like on the ceiling. Like
so sorry to interrupt, but like, so these shadows were just the lines of first, yeah? Yeah. And then they started to like move a little bit just as lines, and then did they form together and like draw together to a shape, or did it just kind of travel down like somebody was changing the direction of the light from behind?
It was like there were like random shadows on the ceiling, and it was like somebody had like a vacuum in the corner that was like pulling them in to this point of the corner. So they all just kind of converged in this corner of like the far left corner bedroom of the ceiling.
Now, was the bedroom, was that known to be drafty or anything like that beforehand? I
mean, there were two windows, but they were both closed.
Okay.
I mean, I kept
no air conditioner, like, sort of.
There was a vent in there. There was an air conditioning vent, but like I said, he always kept it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he always kept it really hot in there. So
gotcha. Interesting. So minimal airflow is what we're trying to say. Minimal airflow.
Yeah, pretty much. And I was weirded out like big time at this point. Like my heart was racing. I was like, when I experimented with stuff like drugs, I never had any visuals like this. I never had anything that was like stuff actually moving like that. And anyway, like all these shadows are getting in the corner, right? And it starts to get like really dark in this corner, like pitch black. And it's dark in the room, but I can see everything. Like I can see the TV and the walls and everything. But in this corner, it's like just getting pitch black, like concentrated darkness. And it got so dark that, and I was like freaking out so bad that I got up and turned the light on, and it was gone. And
so did it make you panic? Is that?
Yeah, definitely.
Like, okay, so you were intimidated by it in some way.
Yeah, definitely.
That whole idea of what you're describing, I mean, it's giving me goosebumps, because like with that absolute darkness, the drawing in light, energy, and stuff like that, plus that coldness by you, that's freaky, dude. I think I'd be right there with you, flipping on the light.
Yeah, I turned my lamp on, and of course everything was gone as soon as I turned the light on, and I just went and slept in the living room the rest of the night, because it was
did this repeat itself, man? Did you ever have another experience like that?
No, it never happened again. I did have like creepy moments where I would think that I would see shadows moving in the house, but never anything like that pronounced. Wow. Yeah, that was definitely the weirdest one. But so the weird thing about this room was it's the room that my grandmother died in. She died in her sleep when I was like 8 years old, in that room. So that, like, thinking about that with all the stuff going on was kind of like creeping me out. Like, I don't think that it was my grandma there, like, making that happen, but that was kind of a weird part of it. And then my uncle, who actually had also, like 5 years before any of this happened, he died of an overdose as well. he had stayed in that room for like 5 or 6 years when we were growing up, like after my grandma died. And he was passed away as well. So I had
did he pass away in the house or not?
No, he was living at his own house, but in the same town. But so I had my grandma and my uncle that had passed away, and the weird thing was, like, this was all during this transitional phase where I was trying to get my shit together, and a couple of years after this happened, like once I had my own apartment and stuff, I took my grandfather to his wife, my grandma's graveside for Mother's Day. We brought flowers and everything. And later that day, whenever I took him home, he was telling me, and I'd never heard anything about any of this, but he was telling me how my grandma had struggled with addiction to like narcotic pain medicine. And I'd never heard anything about this from any of my family, so it's kind of like shocking.
Wow.
But I didn't really think about it at the time, but like later I was like, that's kind of weird that my friend had OD'd and I was there like recovering from all that stuff happening, and to find out that she had struggled with the same issue, and there's that presence of just like, to me, what seemed like just pure darkness in that room that was kind of just like overwhelming. And it was definitely a weird thing to think about in retrospect, like what the hell was that?
Right.
The darkness.
Have you resolved any of that, or what are your thoughts on it now, a little bit removed from that?
I haven't really resolved like the issue of what happened that night. Other than just like kind of, I quit drinking last year. It's been
good, man.
About 18 months. Yeah.
Congratulations, dude.
How you feeling, man?
A lot better. Yeah, a whole lot better.
Good.
I was to the point where sorry. I was to the point where I was drinking about a pint of Sailor Jerry, like high proof rum, like per night, just to be like normal, like get home from work and
just to
chug a lug. Yeah, and it was to the point where I was trying to hide it from my wife and all this stuff, and it, she knew that I was wasted all the time, and I was like just lying about it and just trying to cover it up, but yeah, it was pretty bad. I would wake up on the floor most nights and then go to bed. And then a couple nights, like right before I quit, I would like just do really stupid stuff, like pass out in the garage with the doors open. And one of the last nights before I finally decided to get some help, I was like, it's not really funny, but it still makes me laugh kind of. I was like, it was like 3 a.m. I had to work at 8 a.m. I was like, I need to eat something to get sobered up for work. So I made some corned beef hash on the stove, and I was like, I can microwave it, but it's better if you fry it on the pan. So I like started that up, went to the couch, passed out.
Oh, man.
And woke up to like a house full of smoke, and my wife shaking me like, "Hey, you're gonna kill everybody."
Yeah. That's not a good sign.
No,
that's
the kitchen on
it's definitely
fire,
not funny, but
yeah.
Yeah.
But hey, you gotta listen. If you don't laugh, you cry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, listen.
That's definitely a wake up call there, and but hey, congratulations on stopping, man. That's
good for you.
It's tough. It's tough. I know.
And maybe somewhere in there, in the midst of all that, you found something.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I'm loving life now that I'm
good. Luke, you got a kid? You got a new baby?
Here.
I mean, nothing will put things in perspective like a kid, man.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, that's my really weird story.
Nice, man.
That's cool, man. Well, yeah, that's it's intense, dude. Is what it is.
It is. So we want to try an experiment. We want to get stories from you, the listener, for us to read on air.
What we're saying is, if you don't feel comfortable being interviewed on air, you can type up your story and send it to us, and we will have it read, and we'll share your story that way.
It'll be a cross between us telling your story and our reactions to your story.
So what we'll probably do is have a third party read your stories, and we'll react as we typically do.
And we want to try this as an experiment. It's an idea that we've come up with.
Now, granted, we can't ask you the questions we would normally ask someone who is involved in the story, but we may have our reader just make up stuff.
That could be part of the charm.
And it's a little silly, but we're going to try it, and it'll be fun. I know that you have another story, and it's been one that I've been wanting to hear somebody talk about, Barry. And this is now. Okay, I'm going to let you get into it, but this is definitely a type of story that I've been anticipating. So go ahead and give us this.
Okay, so this happened in high school, and I had a friend who was really into like witchcraft, and he would always tell us stories about all his like spells and how real it is. And I was always like, I don't know, man. I think it's kind of just a bunch of hooey. But he told us this one story about going out into the woods, and they were trying to cast this like money or fortune spell or something, and something like started chasing them through the woods. Like they could just hear like crashing, like loud crashing. So they were just ran, and I was like, man, you're full of crap. Like, and he was like, no, for real, man, I wouldn't make this up. And I was like, all right, well, prove it to me, you know, like, so we were like, one night he was like, all right, we're going to do a little seance, or I can't remember what he called it. But it was basically like, it was so stupid. We were like, we'll just do Bloody Mary. And I was like, this is so childish. Like, this is a kid's game. There's no way this is going to work. And he was like, oh, it'll work. Don't worry. So he set up like in our friend's room. We went over to her apartment, and she was, or her room and her parents' apartment. And it was me, my friend, I don't want to go into names, but yeah, her and her little brother. So it was four of us.
You can make up names as long as you remember them.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, there were four of us there, and we were like, okay, we're going to do this thing. So she had like some mirrors, and we set up mirrors around like in a circle in her bedroom. And we sat like cross-legged just on the floor, and she had she just happened to have a black candle that we lit in the middle of the circle. And my friend's like, all right, we're all going to hold hands, and we're going to chant Bloody Mary, and just close your eyes and just keep saying it. And I was like, well, when do we stop? He was like, after we say it 100 times. I was like, okay, whatever. So we were all doing this. And I was like, this is so retarded, whatever. But we're chanting Bloody Mary and holding hands. And all of a sudden we all like opened our eyes and let go of each other's hands at the same time. Like nobody said anything different. It was just, we all just kind of like stopped and opened our eyes. And as soon as we did that, the flame of the candle just kind of like sucked out. Like it wasn't like, you could tell that no one had blown it out because it didn't flicker in any direction. It just kind of like went like, whoop, like sucked down into the candle. And then it was just completely dark in there. We all of us just like started screaming and ran. And he was like, I told you, dude, I told you. And I was like, man, how did you make that happen? He was like, there's no way I could have done that.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Now, see, it's interesting. I remember what really piqued my interest with when you kind of described that experience in the email was that is a completely different version of the incantation process that I've always known and heard of growing up. And this is, Barry, you probably have the same memory of it as I do, but it's definitely a very middle school thing. Mm-hmm. And I was definitely always too scared of summoning demons to ever try it out.
Yeah, not a good idea. So, definitely not a good idea.
As I recall, the process was you went into a bathroom and you turned off all the lights, so it had to be pitch dark, and it couldn't even have any light from outside or anything. So you got to make sure it's pitch dark, and then you would turn your back to the mirror, and you would say Bloody Mary 3 times.
Right.
Bloody Mary. Well, I won't do it 3 times.
Don't say it. If there's a mirror and there's a mirror behind me, don't say
there's
it.
There's a mirror there. Yeah. So okay. So I won't do it. But so you say it 3 times, and then you would turn around and look into the mirror.
Right.
And apparently, she was supposed to appear.
Right.
And be all bloody and scary.
I remember once that happened, and somebody was like, "I see a guy on a motorcycle" or something, and we were like, "Oh my god!" So it's like power of suggestion, you know. Yeah. It's like, did that really happen, or was I just playing into it, you know?
I did it one time with my stepsister, like the traditional or whatever way, where we were in her room, and my brother was in the shower, which like the mirror in her room was like kind of back to back with the wall of the mirror in the bathroom. Mm-hmm. So I, for the longest time, thought that we had really done this. Like we were in there and we were like, let's do Bloody Mary. Let's see if we can get Bloody Mary to come in the mirror. So we're doing it, and all of a sudden my brother, like, he's taking a shower during this. Like, I can hear the shower running, and he like busts out of the bathroom while we're doing it, and like busts into the room like butt naked, and was like, "Oh my god, I just saw a bloody lady in the mirror." And I was like, "Holy crap, it worked! Oh my god, I can't believe it." It's like, I was like, the mirrors are kind of lined up, so she went into the portal. And I like asked him about it like 10 years later. He was like, "Yeah, I was just fucking with you guys. I could hear it.
I just wanted to show you my balls."
Like, but you came in naked. It was like, I had to sell it, man.
That's commitment right there. That's commitment. That's definitely an older brother move.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a young young man's idea right there. You know what I mean?
My brother would have pulled something similar. I think, although I think my brother would have a bit more modesty than run in completely naked. But that's definitely one of those tricks that, you know, an older brother do. That's brilliant, and I love that, man. I love that. That's great. And before we go, a little birdie told me that you've got a band. Would you like to tell us about your band, and maybe we can even play a song at the end of the podcast here?
Yeah, it's Lake Disney is the name of the band, and I started it like 4 or 5 years ago with some friends, and we've kind of gone through some changes. We're on a little bit of a hiatus right now with the baby and everything, but we're kind of just like an 80s synthwave kind of project. But
cool, man.
We have fun.
Definitely something that I personally vibe out to. So with my band past and everything. So
right on.
Awesome. And do you have SoundCloud or a web page or anything good like that? Is there a place where people can get your goods?
Yep, I do have a SoundCloud. I don't have the link handy, but I can send that to you guys. And then
we'll put it on with our.
And our tape is available through Infinitesimal Records, and I can send you the link for that too.
Great.
Cool.
So we're looking for a little help from our friends. We need you, our loyal listeners, to help us spread the word about the What's Your Weird Story podcast. Just go to your current podcast provider, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Podbean, YouTube. We're just about everywhere. Hit the subscribe button, download the podcast, give us a thumbs up, hit the like button, give us the highest rating you can, and give us a review. The What's Your Weird Story podcast is a community effort. Without our friends and listeners, it wouldn't be possible to do what we do. So please, help us out by spreading the word. Wow. So those were some good stories, man.
Yeah, dude. Good variety.
Good variety. Heavy, on one level, but we had some brightness there toward the end.
Yeah.
So,
and again, there's some rawness that was shared today, and we really appreciate that trust in us to be there and to provide the space for you to express yourself in such an open manner. And, those were some tough stories, but, those are the stories that make us, I mean, we love to laugh, but you've got to, in life, you got to cry a few times too. So,
yeah. And sometimes the weird things happen to you when you're at a vulnerable state in your life,
It's true.
Sometimes you're more maybe open to things when you're sort of at that point. And we consider ourselves to be pretty grounded, open-minded people and accepting of people's different experiences.
And that's something that we have been wanting to provide people. That's something that we have built to provide to our listeners and our supporters and our friends, throughout the podcast, also throughout our lives. You got to be there for people to share their pain and share their experiences and also share their, the joy as well.
Right.
And that's the whole scope of the being human, is that we have all of these and more.
Right.
And, that just makes the beauty of living and of life so much grander.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Meet people where they're at and give to people.
Yeah.
Lend your time, lend your ear,
Yeah.
That's what it should be about, in my opinion. And this is what sometimes, a platform like this can give to people. And we never know where people are coming from. We our experiences are different than other people's, but
quite a bit. I mean, we are pretty well traveled for a couple of small town country boys from Kingfisher, Oklahoma. We've been out in the world, but still, we've only seen just a small fraction of it, and we'll never understand what it's like to be anybody but ourselves. But this gives us a glimpse at the lives and experiences that people have had, and we appreciate it. And we really appreciate all of you telling us stories and all of you listening and joining in. And we really appreciate it. And it means the world to us. We really enjoy doing this for us, but we enjoy doing it for you, so help us keep it going. That's all we ask.
Yeah. And one of the great things is that this is a listening format, and you and I are both music lovers, and that's what music does for me. It's an environment where you shut everything else off and you're just listening. And I think that a format like this, kind of going back to the days of radio, where you're left to your mind and your ears sort of putting the picture together for you. That is an amazing thing. And in a lot of ways, I feel like we're getting kind of back to that simpler way of communicating,
Yeah. So thanks once again to our storytellers, Chris and Greg. Thanks to you, our listeners and our friends and supporters. And thanks to everybody. Be grateful. We're trying to be grateful. And, maybe we should have saved this for closer to Thanksgiving, because we're being so thankful and grateful. But we're always thankful for the support, and we're always thankful for everything that you guys give to us. And we hope we give you back enough joy and enough entertainment and experiences at the same time. So thanks for listening. As always, if you have a weird story, we want to hear it.
If you have a lot of them, we want to hear them all.
We can't do this podcast without your invaluable contributions.
Whether it's sharing your stories,
listening,
rating,
and spreading the word about the podcast. Thanks for listening. Till next time, be safe.
Be weird.
The stories presented on the What's Your Weird Story podcast are, to our knowledge, true experiences that our guests have had. We can't take the time to research all claims made, and besides, it's just not as fun.